Anyone can play poker, that's one of the beauties of the game. But not everyone can be successful at it. That's the challenge. Poker is a game for those who think and use logic, not act irrationally on instinct. People often equate poker with gambling. But I think if you were to talk to any professional poker player, they'd tell you it's a game of skill far more than it is chance. There's a reason that in all these tournaments you see the same names coming up again and again and again. Poker's turned into a billion-dollar industry and everyone wants in on it, everyone's playing. It's really just blown up. But none of this would have happened if it weren't for the pioneers. They're the ones that really made this possible. Throughout history, games have played an important role in developing society. Poker is no different, playing an important role in American history and helping to resemble the American dream and what the American dream represents. The first playing cards appeared in the 9th century during the Tang Dynasty in China. The first reference to the card game in world history dates no later than the 9th century, when a Tang princess known as Tong Jane was described as playing what was known then as the Leaf Game. This was in 868 AD, with members of a fellow clan that ruled China.
The game we know as poker is believed to have ancient roots that go back nearly 1,000 years, crossing several continents and cultures. Some historians say poker's origins can be traced to a domino card game played by the 10th century Chinese emperor. Others claim it's a descendant of a Persian card game which dates back to the 16th century. These games and card games similar made their way to and around Europe by the 1600s.
One of the closest relatives to modern-day poker, called poke, was played in colonial France. At this time, French colonists brought this game to their settlements in North America, including New Orleans and the surrounding area. English-speaking settlers in the region quickly picked up this game and started to adopt many more features of the modern-day game, including 5 cards for each player and, by 1834, a 52-card deck.
From 1834 until about 1970, most poker that took place inside of the United States only happened within local saloons or home games. But with the growing popularity of Las Vegas, a group of gamblers got together and established the World Series of Poker. Although it received little to no press outside of Las Vegas itself, it would soon become the world's largest poker tournament. In 2003, Chris Moneymaker, a small-town accountant, entered into the World Series of Poker main event through a free roll that he won online. With his victory, people across the globe realized that with the access of the internet, not only could they win free rolls into large tournaments, but they could use the access to thousands of hands and opponents to advance their skills. The game of poker was changed forever. After 2003, what became known as the Moneymaker effect soon took the poker nation by storm, and the industry blew up almost overnight. Just 3 years later, the World Series of Poker main event had over 8,000 entries, making a first prize place money of $12 million, up from $2 million in 2003. Thousands of new, young up-and-comers started playing online, creating a whole new scene of poker, and advancing the strategy of the game far beyond anything previously.
So I'm playing 40-80, no limit hold'em, heads up.
I had $35,000 in front of me.
Effective stacks are about 450 big blinds.
I'm on the button with pocket
I raised
tens.
tens on the button to 240. He pots it to 720.
He was 3-betting something around 22%.
Definitely the play right here is to call.
The flop comes out ace 10 7 all clubs.
When that 10 comes on the flop, it's just a monster flop for you.
There's about $1,400 in the pot, and he bets $800.
It's on the smaller side.
And this board texture, it's a little bit suspicious.
Because of that, I decided to call.
He turns the 8 of spades.
Now my opponent checks.
I take that as a sign of him giving up.
Could mean he's giving up, could mean he's trapping us.
Pot's about 3,000, I bet about 2,600.
And he check raises me to 10,800.
You can have a weak ace, you can have any pair between
King,
tens
queen,
and
king,
aces.
jack, queen, jack with 1 club.
I have 10 cards that could give me a full house. even if I'm
23% of the
behind.
time we're going to
I also
improve
do
to a
have
hand that he
some outs
basically
and
can't.
flush.
So I call. In the river comes a king.
River's the king of spades.
And he shoves for basically a pot.
Jams.
It's an absurdly big bet.
He knows that he's only representing very strong
King high
hands
flush, queen high flush.
or a bluff.
The math says to call here.
If I'm not calling
He
30%
bet
or 40%,
$800
Most
for
people just won't put that
1,400.
much money in the
It's
pot.
not a super strong hand.
so I'd probably make the call with pocket tens.
With poker taking on new life as more than gambling, but rather a game of strategy, it began to become the new American dream as thousands of people who would have never otherwise played had a chance to play a game for a living and began to turn their lives around with hard work and dedication. You no longer needed a large financial background in order to play poker, but rather if you were willing to put in the effort and time, you could be successful at playing a game for a living. In 2011, the U.S. Justice Department took the domain names of PokerStars, Ultimate Bet, Absolute Poker, and Full Tilt Poker. This devastated the poker community inside the United States. and many players moved outside of the U.S. boundaries in order to continue to play online for a living. Within the past couple of years, many negotiations have been taking place in order to get these domains back inside the United States, as this was a major marketplace for these companies. The history of poker is something that is not set in stone. It'll continue to change and morph within the next coming years. But one thing is for sure, no matter what happens to the game, people will follow.
Met up with a gambler, we were both too tired to sleep, so we took turns of staring out the window at the darkness till boredom overtook us, and he began to speak. He said, son, I've made a life out of reading people's faces and knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. So if you don't mind my saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice. So I handed him my bottle, and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold